非常感谢刘副局长的致辞。接下来呢，我们邀请到韩国首尔大学环境学院的尹顺珍教授来进行我们第一场的专题演讲。尹教授呢，长期投入在韩国能源及环境保护政策的研拟，今年更成为了韩国总统2050年碳中和咨询小组的主席。相信我们听完了尹教授的分享以后，大家会更加了解韩国的绿色新政，以及有哪些呢是值得我国借鉴之处。那现在呢，就让我们来欢迎尹教授和我们分享韩国如何透过绿色新政迈向净零。
Hi, my name is Sun-Jin Yun. I'm professor at Graduate School of Environmental Studies of Seoul National University, and I serve for 2050 Carbon Neutrality Commission, which belongs to the president as a co-chairperson. Yeah, today I want to present about Korea's Green New Deal. Let me show you my presentation material. I want to say about the background of Korean Green New Deal. This slide shows you the flow of discussion on Korean Green New Deal in Korea as well as worldwide. In 2015, there was a maybe social global consensus on the Paris Agreement. And then in 2018, IPCC issued a special report on 1.5 Celsius. These two mobilized the world society to work on maybe global net zero by 2050. And there was a talk about the Green New Deal in the US. 2019 January, Green New Deal resolution of House Representatives was passed. And then in Korea, July 2019, there was a project about Transitional New Deal, which was performed by National Research Council, in which 26 national research institutions belonged to. And then 2019 December, EU announced the Green Deal. And in Korea, you know, there was big debate and discussion about Korea Green New Deal when the general election was prepared by all parties. So especially Green Party and Justice Party and Democratic Party made the pledge on Green New Deal during that general election season. It is February and March in 2020. And as you know, we have suffered from COVID-19. So people thought maybe because of COVID-19, our economy experienced maybe some kind minus growth rate. So people expected some kind of economic boost, but our government announced Korea New Deal, including Korea Green New Deal in July 2020. So let me show you the flow more specifically. So you know, before COVID-19, there was big discussions on Korea Green New Deal. These posters shows how much discussions about it. But you know, I couldn't include all the posters of many events, but these are the representative events about Korea Green New Deal. And as I mentioned, major parties made a pledge on Green New Deal when we have prepared the general election, which was on April 15th. So you can see Justice Party, Green Party, but these are minority parties in Korea. But currently the ruling party is Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party announced carbon zero society by 2050, and it announced they will registrate Korea, maybe Green New Deal Framework Act at that time. And it says we need to realize net zero society by using or through Green New Deal. It is the majority, the biggest ruling party's announcement about Green New Deal. At that time, there was a survey about the opinions on the Green New Deal. So most people, maybe over 60% of respondents answered promoting Green New Deal to stimulate the economy is good. So 61% of respondents are positive to that direction. And 60% of respondents also agreed on legislation of the Green New Deal in the National Assembly. So this opinion was conducted by the Korean research at the request of Greenpeace on April of 2020. And then, you know, President Moon made remarks on Green New Deal. There was cabinet meeting on May 12th in 2020. He said, President Moon Jae-in, he said, Green New Deal is the talk of the town, instructing 4 ministries, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises and Startups, and the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport to jointly report the Green New Deal. After a joint written report of the 4 ministers' project on May 20th last year, he decided to include the Korean Green New Deal in the Korean New Deal. Before that time, Green New Deal was not included in Korean version of New Deal. So he mentioned the Green New Deal is obviously the way we should go, even considering the demands of the international community and civil society. We need to acknowledge it. And he said, we should include the Green New Deal in the Korean New Deal. And then there was the 6th emergency economic meeting on June 1st last year. And he continuously stated, we will strongly pursue the Korean New Deal, which has 2 pillars, Digital New Deal and Green New Deal. On the basis of people first values and an inclusive nation, with the Green New Deal, we will pave the way for the sustainable development. We will actively respond to climate change as a responsible member of the international community and create new markets, industries, and jobs. So he mentioned all these remarks, and this shows you the composition of Korean New Deal, which was conducted by as I mentioned, this one, this one. National Research Council. And then after his remarks on instruction about inclusion of Green New Deal in Korean New Deal, there was heavy discussions about Green New Deal, especially the relationship between COVID-19 and Green New Deal. So, for example, post-corona period, what kind of New Deal we need? Or COVID-19 and climate disaster period, what kind of Green New Deal is necessary? Or what our attitude on Green New Deal. Such kind of big discussions we had. But you know, at that time there was severe critiques because you know at that time the President Moon didn't refer about 2050 net zero. So many civil associations or NGOs criticized him. because his remarks didn't refer about net zero. But you know, I know the reason. At that time, we had some civil societies maybe survey about the government performed some maybe some process of opinion collection about net zero. So that process was not completed. So the President Moon thought the government should not say about net zero until that opinion collection process finishes. So he didn't mention about net zero, but so, you know, there was announcement of comprehensive plan about Korean New Deal on July 14th last year. So the vision was from a faster follower to a first mover economy, from a carbon dependent to a low carbon economy, from a socially divided to an inclusive society. So it doesn't include net zero yet, because as I mentioned, our opinion collection process was not completed at that time. So there was two policies and plus one policy. Two pillars was a Digital New Deal and Green New Deal, and it is based on stronger safety net New Deal. And you know, there was a fiscal investment plan and institutional improvement. So it shows you a key project of Korean New Deal. So Digital New Deal had three main projects, and the Green New Deal had three main projects. And between them, Digital and Green New Deal was integrated. So there were 4 projects. So totally there were 10 major projects. And you know, under that 10 major projects, there were 28 sub-projects. So this shows you the overview of Korean New Deal. So especially Green New Deal. Green New Deal includes 3 focus areas, and each focus area includes 3 or 2 sub-projects. So the first one is the green transition of infrastructures, and it includes sub-projects like turning public facilities into zero energy buildings and restoring the terrestrial, marine, and urban ecosystem, and building a management system for clean and safe water. And the second focus area was low carbon and decentralized energy, and it includes 3 major, 3 sub-projects: building a smart grid for more efficient energy management, promoting renewable energy use and supporting a fair transition, and expanding the supply of electric and hydrogen vehicles. And the last focus area of Green New Deal was innovation in the green industry, and it includes 2 sub-projects. So one is promoting prospective businesses to lead the green industry and establishing low carbon and green industrial complexes, and laying the foundation for green innovation via the R&D and financial sectors. And it shows you the total project cost and expected number of jobs. So, you know, here, Green New Deal maybe account for shows you maybe the cost here, the total cost and the period. The first column is about 2020 to 2022, and the last right one is by 2025. So, you know, the total was 160 million won, trillion won, and maybe the parenthesis comes from the government, and the figures here includes private investment too. So the total jobs maybe created is 1,901. I'm sorry, the unit is 1,000. So maybe 1 million and maybe 901,000. So more jobs comes from Digital New Deal and then Green New Deal. So let me show you the concept and goal of Korea Green New Deal. We face economic crisis and climate and ecological crisis. So these simultaneous crises we are facing. So Green New Deal is composed of low carbon and environment friendly transition and bold investment and innovation. So it pursues simultaneous overcoming climate and ecological crisis with economic crisis. So the government announced, especially President Moon Jae-in announced 2050 carbon neutrality on October 28th last year. At that time, he made a speech in front of National Assembly. And after that, he announced 2050 carbon neutrality domestically and internationally repeatedly. And the government initiated the launch of 2050 Carbon Neutrality Commission. So you can see here the background, planetary rising temperatures and frequent climate extremities, and we need the global new paradigm. So that is the main background of declaration of 2050 carbon neutrality. How about the operating mechanism of 2050 Carbon Neutrality Commission? It was launched on May 29th of this year. So you can see here, it is composed of two co-chairpersons, Prime Minister and co-chairperson from private sector. I mean, just the civil society, non-government sector. So that is myself. And there are 18 ministers and 77 civil members. So it maybe maybe the number of the total number of commissioners are 97. And there is a steering committee and there are 8 sub-commissions. And a subcommission can compose a commission of expert groups. And there are 2 very unique systems. One is the Citizens Council for Climate Neutrality. It is composed of citizens representatives. We select citizens representative randomly, and over 500 citizens representatives have some citizens carbon classroom, citizens discussion forum, and in-depth consultations, including e-learning studying materials. And then we ask their opinion about carbon neutrality and directions of our country to moving forward. And another unique organization or channel is consultative bodies. The reason why we organize this kind of bodies is to collect the voices of various entities, especially stakeholders, including industries, laborers, civil societies, youth groups, and local governments, etc. And we announced the draft of 2050 carbon neutrality scenarios on August 5th. So the reason is to show what kind of a future we can make based on different assumptions and conditions. So the vision was building a safe and sustainable carbon neutral society free from calamity of climate crisis. And we chose 5 principles to realize the vision, including principles of responsibility, inclusiveness, fairness, reasonableness, and innovation. And it shows you the draft of 2050 carbon neutrality scenarios. We had 3 scenarios. So, you know, every scenario pursues a net zero society. However, it's domestic net emissions are different. Scenario 1 is the biggest, and the scenario 3 is 0. So scenario 3 achieve net zero scenario domestically. Other 2 scenarios, scenario 1, 2, cannot realize a net zero society within our society. We need international cooperation. Why? Because the composition of transformation sector is different. Scenario 1 have coal-fired power plant and LNG. Scenario 2, without coal-fired power plant, but we still have LNG. And scenario 3, we do not have any fossil fuel-based power plants. Just renewable energy account for 70.8% of transformation sector. And we use no carbon energy sources to make power. That is the reason. And others, scenario 2 reflects some changes of our lifestyle, and scenario 3 also pursues lifestyle changes and more innovative technologies to pursue net zero society. So you can see the difference here too. Because of high dependence on, not high especially, you can see here the reduction rate of our carbon greenhouse gas emissions from 2018. Scenario 1 is 96.5% and scenario 2 is 97.4%. I think these figures are not small. It is very strong, but still we should utilize carbon capture, utilization, and storage technology to make these scenarios. Even though scenario 3 also uses CCUS, but the amount of CCUS use is much smaller than scenario 1, 2. So this kind of scenario analysis shows us dependence on fossil fuel is very difficult, make us difficult to realize carbon neutral society. And the government announced Korea New Deal 2.1 last July 14th. It is the second year of Korea New Deal announcement. The vision is becoming a leading country through great transformation. And at this time, the government made 3 pillars, Digital New Deal and Green New Deal and Human New Deal. This is, it is added this year. So, and there are 4 projects under each section, but we have a new project under Digital, Green New Deal, and Human New Deal. So news in red, letters in red shows you the new project added. So there are changes between Korea New Deal version 1 and 2. You can see here, in case of Digital New Deal, we have, version 1 includes 4 projects. Version 2 also use 4 projects, but second and third project was integrated and we made a new project that is fostering new hyper-connected industries. And in case of Green New Deal, it includes 1 additional project that is building a foundation for carbon neutrality, because we already announced 2050 carbon neutrality last year. And in case of Human New Deal, it was a safety net project. And at this time, it became a normal New Deal. And it includes 4 projects, and 2 projects were added. That is news policy and bridging the gap. So you can see here, budget plan. Every New Deal has increased budget. In case of Digital New Deal, it is a smaller increase. And in case of Green New Deal, a much higher increase. And here, the Human New Deal, it is maybe over 9 trillion won, but it is still smaller than other New Deals, but its growth rate is very high, around 2 times. And the regional balance is maybe in Korea, there is a big gap between metropolitan area and other non-metropolitan regions. So it is very important to make a balance in terms of regional development. So it was included in Korean New Deal last October. And you can see here fiscal spending summary of Korean New Deal version 2.1. You can see here difference. Every New Deal has increased fiscal spending, as I mentioned. And the total project cost is 160 trillion won to 220 trillion won in version 2. And the lower part shows you the central government budget, and the job creation by 2025 becomes bigger. In version 1, 190 jobs to 250 jobs in new version, second version of Korean New Deal. And this shows you Korea's emission trend and the 2030 nationally determined contributions. Actually, last week, the government and the 2050 CNC announced the draft of 2030 NDC. Actually, in Korea, announced its 2020 target, greenhouse gas reduction target. It was 37% reduction from BAU, but the government changed its reduction target into 40.4% from 2017 last year. Maybe 2019, and it was submitted to the UN last year. But you can see this is the targeted path, but our real emission path was expressed in red line, so it is much higher, and that green line shows you the projected BAU. So our real emission during 2010 to 2013, it was over the projected emissions. But fortunately, our emissions was reduced in 2019 and 2020 last year, but still there was a gap over, you can see here, 105 million tons difference between our real emission and the targeted emission. And you can see here our 2030 target. Originally, our government announced 24.4% from 2017, but it was changed into 26.3% from 2018. It is the same. And this red dot was recommended by our National Assembly based on Framework Act on Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth. That act was passed last August 31st. And the green dot was recommended by government and 2050 CNC. And it is 40% reduction from 2018 emissions. So it is a little over the path to 2050 net zero emissions. We still have a remaining process to finalize our 2050 CNC scenarios and 2030 NDC. So this is our New Deal and some response of our Korean companies. Thank you.